You're listening to 3-1 Greats, the podcast about people from North Louisiana making their mark in the broader world. Today's episode features another 3-1 Great from the 318, so let's get to it.
Okay, Van, we start off with, like a lot of podcasts start off, we're going to start off with an introduction. So Van Freeman is the guest. 318 is a podcast that celebrates people shaped by North Louisiana who go off to do great things in the broader world. And today, Van is a perfect example of that journey. So Van didn't just grow up in Shreveport. He grew up on the inside of local history. In 1921, his family co-founded Freeman and Harris Cafe, a Shreveport staple that was known not only for serving plates, but for serving a purpose in the community. In its time, it was one of the rare places in the South where all people, black, white, or other, would dine under the same roof. During the Civil Rights Movement, powerful leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. dined and held meetings there. Conversations that helped shape the Civil Rights Movement happened right in his family's place. So when you talk about leadership, legacy, and responsibility, Van's been surrounded by those qualities his entire life. But the reason he's our guest today is not because of what his family has done or his family's history in Shreveport. It's what he's done after his Shreveport beginnings. He's a Morehouse University graduate. He's a Southern Law grad. He's worked on 2 successful presidential campaigns in the U.S. Department of Commerce and in aerospace. So today we will talk about all of that with our guest, Van Freeman. Welcome to 3-1 Greats. Did I cover just about everything or all the high points?
Yes. Attended Morehouse College, Southern University Law Center, all those great things.
Excellent. So we'll take us back. Where did you grow up?
To give you like a full overview. So I was born in Shreveport, birthplace, but my dad would receive a job offer literally a couple weeks after I was born. So I really grew up in Dallas, moved to Atlanta, moved to Baton Rouge, and then back to Shreveport. I didn't move back to Shreveport really until I was in middle school, 7th, 8th grade. But I had been back several times because we lived in Dallas, so it was close. Still had family there, and we visited. And that's kind of understanding where I'm from and the importance of Shreveport. But my parents lived on Pine Road, and then when we moved back, we moved to Spring Hill, and then of course I went to Byrd. But that played a kind of pivotal role in a lot of things. And as far as like growing up and understanding Shreveport, another significant piece about Byrd for me was that my dad integrated Byrd in 1967.
Wow.
He was one of the first people to integrate Byrd, and very few people know about that, but he reminded me of that whenever he went. So when he graduated in 1970 as one of the first classes of blacks that graduated, it definitely was pivotal for me because I graduated in 2000, 30 years later.
And Shreveport was, just for folks who don't know, Shreveport was one of the last strongholds of the Confederacy. So, and I've had a guy on a couple of episodes ago that said, old beliefs die hard, and especially in the Civil Rights South, that was the case. So you had a culture here that before your dad came along and before my ancestors got here, there was a belief system here that was almost impenetrable.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what shocks a lot of people. You said your dad started in 1966, right?
Yeah, he was he started Byrd in 67 as a sophomore. And ironically enough, not just the fact that he was one of the classes that integrated, his classmates, his sons were my classmates. But Jonathan Scoggins' dad was my dad's classmate.
No way.
My classmate. John Bolton's dad was my classmate. His son was my classmate.
Yeah.
So it's just literally the irony of life that we ended up being classmates, that I moved back in order for us to be there and for me to be classmates with them at that time. Knowing that they had our parents had a shared history, and then we had a shared history, really created a unique bond between us. To this day, Jonathan Scoggins and I, if we message or we text, we'll send us an email or something like that. But definitely we shared that connection amongst our class.
Wow. So I didn't know that about your dad. There was so much even after the Civil Rights Act that was still segregated because, Shreveport was Shreveport back then.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are a lot of stories there that he's probably passed down to you. And go ahead.
Even to the point of, my dad integrating bird. There were, when my grandfather, Charles Freeman, left the Army and decided to come back and work and then moved to Shreveport, the post office only hired 5 blacks to work for the post office. My grandfather and Judge Carl Stewart, who's Chief Justice of the Fifth Circuit, his dad. So Judge Stewart's dad and my grandfather were one of the first 5 black postmen in Shreveport.
Mm.
And then, of course, Judge Stewart and my dad grew up together as well. And his son and I share some commonality because I recruited his son to come to Morehouse College with me.
Nice.
Knowing Shreveport was segregated is an understatement, because like I knew the different aspects of like when it was integrated, who it was, what they did. I talked briefly about Judge Stewart, and we can even talk about Jesse Stone, Jesse Stone, he was a prominent attorney in Shreveport, and my dad and his son, who passed away, were best friends. Like best friends. So whether it be prominent attorneys in Shreveport or judges, I always knew them. I mean, even from Tim Hardy, who is now a prominent attorney in the state. I mean, used to be Secretary of Department of Environmental Quality for state of Louisiana, still close friend. And just sitting down, eating dinner with these people, having them talk to me, express kind of like the things I should do, the history of things, how I should navigate bird life in Shreveport. Because when I moved back to Shreveport, I was from Shreveport, but I was an outsider because I didn't go to middle school with everyone else. So I was different, and I looked for ways to still connect with people and be myself.
Did you feel different, or do you think you were perceived as different?
I knew I was perceived as different. Do not have a Southern accent because my mom was a teacher and like was just very strict on diction and whatnot. But I perceived just things differently. I had seen life from just a different perspective. Just 2 brief examples. I said I lived in Atlanta and lived in Baton Rouge. When I lived in Atlanta, I went to elementary school. There was 1 white guy in my entire class. 1. Then I transferred to Episcopal, a private high school in Baton Rouge, and I was the only black kid. Like within 3 months. So I could distinctly see the difference in tone, tenor, and the way people looked at me. So when I came to Shreveport and I could see that it was integrated, people were getting along, I was aware of probably just how people looked at me or perceived me and how that might come off, and then how I should conduct myself. Like, why am I here?
Yeah.
So from that perspective.
Yeah, I totally get that. I grew up in Shreveport and went from, K to all the way to 12th grade in really diversified classrooms. I think every classroom that I had, the racial makeup was similar, if not exact, to the the local population.
Right.
It was probably half and half every single time, every single class that I had. Like when people find out that I'm from Shreveport, when they there's automatically this connotation of racism, right? And at least from the outside. And I've always found that as pretty particularly unique about Shreveport. Is not saying that there's not racism. There definitely is racism there, but there is a coexisting nature of things in Shreveport. And go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is, I think, even down to like, Freeman and Harris, just knowing how it became a place where people could just like sit down and eat. Louisiana is known for its food. Let's lay that as the table setter. It's known for its food, and it's food that is mixed with varying cultures. And Shreveport's in a unique spot because it's not South Louisiana, it's North Louisiana. So you get a little bit of Texas flavor as well. People congregate around food, and they realize that like at the end of the day, we all have to sit down and eat, and have a meal and learn how to break bread together. We might not go to church in the same place on Sundays. We might work at different places, but we can at least sit down and eat, and have a meal because we all fix gumbo kind of the same,
Right.
for the most part.
For the most
And
part.
we all like crawfish. So, these common things of like understanding that there is racism, it's there, but I think people find common places. I will say this one thing. So I know it's probably further down in questioning, but one of the first places I actually ever worked, like actually, my brother and sister, my brother had a job like at Burger King. My sister, she worked in South Louisiana, so she was in Baton Rouge. She worked at State Capitol. My first job was at Shreveport Country Club because I played on the golf team. Shreveport Country Club was a white establishment, very much like Hal Sutton was a member. I talked with Hal, talked with his caddy, but there were some members, even when I worked there, that didn't want me to work there. And it was because I had he was the head pro at the time. He was from Indiana, actually. He was from Indiana, and he kind of knew this, and he told me, he was like, some members don't like that you're here, but I think you're a good kid. Like, you like playing golf. I want you to work. So I worked. But there were always certain members that just didn't like me.
Yeah.
For whatever it was.
Yeah.
Went to school with some of the grandkids. Other members knew, like, so on and so forth. But some just didn't.
And I think that's kind of the mirage of like, yeah, I definitely don't want to post this image of Shreveport as like a racial haven in the 1990s, because it definitely wasn't. But it was like, even then, there were some strongholds that were, that there was a refusal to break down, and, hey, we've always had this way. We want it to stay this way. So you guys have your thing, we're going to have our thing. And that was, yeah, it doesn't surprise me, especially at a country club, I mean, I remember Tiger Woods being kicked out of a country club in like 94 when he was, 17 or 18 years old. So,
and I think people just need to understand, like, even in the 90s, our grandparents, our parents who were still living, of course, they were raising us, had lived through segregation. So they still had that imprint of what it was in their mind, whether they believed it or not. So whether they verbalized it or not was still something that they could do, and had to recognize, like, there were still certain racial tensions about certain things.
Okay. Yeah. So you moved to back to Shreveport around middle school. What side of town were you on?
So we moved to Spring Hill,
Louisiana. Yep. Okay. Yep. So that's even like Spring Hill, man.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I mean, it was a nicer neighborhood. Of course, my parents were, they were doing better off at that time, but it was still one of those areas that is like, we don't need you walking around the neighborhood, just be mindful. There was tennis courts around the corner. So it was still something to where you're mindful of your surroundings. But I didn't let it like define every aspect of my life. I mean, one of the things I remember doing at Bird is, and you probably remember, I don't know if you remember this, like, I started a lot of clubs or did certain things. And there was a Leo Club, which was a feeder organization for the Lions Club. A Lions Club in Shreveport was very white at that time. So whenever they're inviting the sitting president of the Leo Club from Bird, a prominent high school, to have dinner or lunch with them, you could see the room. And I was aware of this. I knew this. But I also realized that, like, if my dad could do it in the 60s, why can't I do it now?
Standing on the shoulders of giants. There you go. So, I love your family story. And because it is like at the core of it, there is like a stoicism to how, now I don't know much about your great grandfather or your grandfather, but I do know now about your father and you. And there is this kind of like this steady ship just staying its course. I'll say this, the thing that I remember most about you in high school, because spoiler alert, Van and I went to high school together. And we were in the same grade. We weren't, I wouldn't say we were friends. We didn't hang out, but I knew of him. You probably knew of me. And what I remember about you is like, you were steady. There goes a dude who's steady. And there goes a guy who knows maybe not where he's going to end up, but he knows the direction. And that path was your own, right? Yeah. That's something that really made you stand out. And one of the reasons why I reached out to you, one of the reasons why I've followed you, and just to see like how you've done and just the successes that you've had, was just your countenance, how you carried yourself way back then. So bravo.
No, thanks. I think, as far as like a steady path, like I briefly mentioned, I moved around a lot, changed schools. I honed kind of like the narrative in myself. I have to control the controllables, but I have to be the determining factor on what happens to me. And
I did not learn that until probably 6 or 7 years ago, like
like
deep into adulthood.
I had to figure out when was the earliest I could control my controllables, even down to working, like when I
Mm,
wanted to work. Because some people are like, oh, you get a job. No, you get a job. You can control how much money you bring in. You control what you can get. Then even college.
yeah.
So on my mom's, so my dad was the first one on his side of the family to go to college. Even with Freeman and Harris, a lot of them were business owners. So Freeman and Harris was started by Van Buren Freeman Jr. So
Okay.
there was there's a picture of Van Buren Freeman Jr., Van Buren Freeman Sr. Van Buren's a family name.
Mm,
My name is actually Matthew Van Buren Freeman. Negotiated by my parents. My mom wanted Matthew because she wanted the book of the Bible first. So lo and behold, Matthew Van Buren. Everyone calls me Van. And when we visit Shreveport, my dad, he wanted me to know that that's who I was named after because there were
mm,
not just Van Buren, but there are several Vans in my family tree. So I'm like the
got it.
sixth.
And Van Buren Freeman Jr. was your
He was like my great uncle.
great uncle. Okay. Got it.
So several brothers came from, was it southeast or southwest Louisiana, came up to Shreveport.
Yep.
Some started grocery stores, some started from Harris, and then Jack
Yep.
Harris, of course, is the other cousin.
Yep.
But everyone kind of like worked with the restaurant or worked with another one of the businesses. And my dad wanted me to know that was who I was named after because I remember vividly. I will never forget this to this day. Walked in the restaurant. He looked up at the sign. He's like, "That's who you're named after. That's why you're named. That's why you have this name. I want you to know that." Um,
Mm. Well, how old
y-
were you then?
oh man, I was probably like 5, 6 because I still remember looking up at the picture. Because it was Van V. Wells. I think he was the first Van in my family. But fast forward, as far as like the name and even with Freeman Harris, I was on Facebook. Of course, everyone has a Facebook profile.
Right.
And after I finished college, I had a gentleman reach out to me. He was like, "Hey, are you from Shreveport?" I was like, "Yeah." "Are you from Freeman Harris?" I was like, "Yes." So we started chatting. I let him talk to my parents, and he was like a cousin. But he found me because not of Freeman, but because I'm Van Buren. And he was like, "You're like the seventh." And he did our family lineage back to like 1673. I say that in a number of different ways or for a number of different reasons. Being determinate upon like yourself and your own destiny, I tried to anchor myself that in my core because like I'd seen things happen to people or whatever. And I'll tell you about this trip later on. But, I was fortunate to kind of know where I wanted to go to school, to
Mm,
college. I wanted to go to Morehouse since I was in like sixth grade. And, my dad and I, we got an argument about I wanted to go to Morehouse. He wanted me to go to Southern. And I was like, no, because the rest of all my family had been to Southern. My dad's first in his side to finish at Southern. My great aunt and uncle and my grandfather had gone to Southern in like the 1930s.
mhm.
So, like, they had been there, taught, and worked at the university, but I wanted to chart my own path.
Yeah.
I was like, "I appreciate what y'all have done, but, like, I have something to do."
Was that the singular appeal to Morehouse, or was there something else?
So,
It's Atlanta, right?
yes, it's Atlanta. So,
Okay.
Morehouse, for those who might not know, it's all black, all male school. Like 2800, Dr. Martin Luther King went there. But something called in me and just said, "You need to go." And, I guess I can tell the story about, like, how I really got there.
Yeah.
It's a
Do
lot
it.
of, like, sliding door moments in my history. I did this, um, like, museum tour one summer, and I was, like, the curator when I lived in Baton Rouge by Lady Salah Shabazz. She was the curator of the Black Conventions Museum, and she liked me. She said, "Hey, you did a great job." You're, like, 6th grade or whatever. And she stayed in contact with my mom. Letter writing, "Hey, I really want to support your son, yada, yada. That's great." And my mom's like, "All right, this lady's like lives in LA like crazy." And she's on the radio at this time. She does the Tom Jordan morning show, very widely known. The summer before my senior year, and I think very few people at Bird know this. Summer before my senior year, she offered to pay for me to go to Africa for a month.
Whoa.
To Ghana, West Africa. And I had never left the country. I had never been on a plane. at that point. My mom, this is like a family trip. This is a me, 17-year-old me. So I want to talk to those 17-year-old people. This is 17-year-old me who had never been on a plane. And my mom had faith at that point. They were like, all right, got the passport, worked that out, got on a plane in New York, took the plane. It was a direct flight from New York to Ghana. I got there, and it was probably it was definitely one of the more pivotal, life-changing moments as far as like me just like seeing a different side of the world, seeing how things operated, seeing how people lived. And while I was there, we were doing, visits to different parts of the hills in Africa. I was on a bus. Well, I wasn't on the bus. I was in a village, and a bus was passing by, and a gentleman stops the bus. He says, "Y'all need to stop this bus right now because I need to talk to that boy right there." He's pointing at me, black guy. So at this time, I had Morehouse College written on my backpack straps. You probably remember I had this written on my backpack in whiteout. That's what we did back then.
I remember.
Like, right. I wrote Morehouse College. He spotted this on a bus, like going through the hills. So it's like him, Ray Nagin, like several other prominent leaders from New Orleans were on this bus. They stopped the bus. He got off the bus, and he came over and sat down and talked to me. And he was like, "You want to go to Morehouse?" I was like, "Yes, I want to go to Morehouse." And he's probably one of the more prominent alum at Morehouse at the time. His name is Dr. Kelvin Mackey. His brother is Anthony Mackie, Captain America. So he writes my letter of recommendation to Morehouse. I get in, and the rest is history. I got my acceptance letter.
So do you think about like what would have happened to Van Freeman had he not gone to West Africa as a 17-year-old? What a leap of faith.
Like, when I say it was like, I mean, it's like my wife and I, we were laughing about it the other day. It's like there are like these moments in time that's like pivotal moments. It's like that right there was like a directional moment that just like shifted things. But also when I was there, they take you to, and this goes back to kind of like that control the controllables. I had the privilege to go to like the slave castles when I was there. And President Obama made it kind of gave it more notoriety when he took his family there. But they take you to the dungeon and slave castle. And tell it specifically. And then they take you to the hallway, and there's like this door of no return. You see kind of like the little hole, and I say, "This is the last place where your answers would have been." So when you're in that dungeon, and you like, I remember vividly closing my eyes, and I'm not like, I'm very scientific. I'm not very like strictly for vibes. But if there are like frequencies in which particles can resonate at, and you can see things, whether it be infrared or visible light, I felt that I could see myself and my ancestors, and in understanding this one thing, that the person who left there, their blood survived beatings, pushing off of slave ships, slavery, Jim Crow segregation, getting missed by hit by bullets, everything. For me to exist.
Yeah.
So once I understood that, I had a duty to move the needle.
What a
Like,
purpose.
yeah. Like you're here for a reason. You didn't just like happenstance. No. You are here. You have a purpose. And it just clicked.
Wow. Man, I need a minute. That's amazing.
And that's for me. That was something that I will always hold on to. But I tell people, it's like sometimes you need to close your eyes and think of those people who came before you and the struggles that they had, whether you know their name or not. But they survived for you to exist. So you have a purpose.
Yeah. So you come back from that to Shreveport.
Yeah. They dropped back to Shreveport now.
You come back from this just serendipitous trip, and where you can feel all these things, and it just sounds like you were baptized in Africa, and you come back. How did you see as far as like, I'm sure that senior year, like Shreveport and everything was just a blur, as you can see Morehouse on the horizon.
So even at that point, Morehouse wasn't certain to me. I still had to apply, and I can share this here. So I knew then, but I didn't get like diagnosed fully. But I have dyslexia. And that's another thing that Jonathan Scoggins and I share. We were both diagnosed at the same time. And at that time, Shreveport schools, they weren't equipped to handle this.
No.
Like, matter of fact, there was a lawsuit that was recently settled because of it. Like, my mom sent me the article. So
I'm just thinking about all of the autistic people that we grew up with, that he's a little off, like that was
yeah,
the diagnosis.
yeah. So like so and I say that because Morehouse wasn't certain at the time because I didn't score like the highest on my on my ACT, but I had good grades. I had all the extracurriculars. I
Right.
played on the golf team. I did everything else.
Yeah.
So Morehouse wasn't certain for me, but I
Mhm.
knew I was gonna go. And how I saw Shreveport from that point was it has grounded me in who the person I need to be. As far as you are just like anyone else, as my dad would say, you put your pants on one leg at a time. But no matter where you are or where you come from, you're destined for more.
That's good. That's good. And I think that that's something that makes people from our area a little bit unique is you do, for the example of the dyslexia, for whatever reason, you come out of Shreveport having to have jumped through some hurdles that maybe other people haven't. And I think that that place really did maybe inadvertently equip a lot of us for the real world and for just, solving things on our own. Right. So, you went off, you graduated from Morehouse, then you went to Southern. I'm sure your dad loved that.
Yeah, yeah.
And you got your JD.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I know there's some time in between. Maybe you want to share on that.
My path was not straightforward. So did Morehouse, did math and engineering dual degree. So I was an engineering major, degree in mathematics, and
Kind of a smart guy. Kind of a smart guy.
but I still did politics in school. Like I did SGA, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Started the golf team, and I did a lot of stuff, and that comes into play later on as far as like the campaign, because I went to work for GM after school. Like they were paying well. I had an internship all 4 years. Like boom.
GM in Shreveport.
No, GM in
Oh.
well, I had a connection to Shreveport. I would work for GM in Nashville, in Spring Hill.
Okay.
One of the managers who was on my review board was a gentleman by the name of Charles Hilt, who was from Shreveport and knew my parents. And I knew his family because his daughter went to Magnet High along with
Wow.
his son around the same time I did. So there was a Shreveport connection there.
Yep.
And the site manager was from Shreveport.
There you go.
I was in my interview process. It was kind of like, hey, like I'm not going to Shreveport, but like, can you help me out here? It was more than help me out, but like I did a good job and they hired me. So started out with GM, and it was an interesting time with GM since around 2005. General Motors wasn't doing that great, so
No.
I started to notice I probably need to do a career pivot, and I took a rotation opportunity in Detroit. So I moved up to Detroit, Michigan for a year as a supervisor on night shift. And at that point, I was like, all right, it's still not looking good for GM. Like I missed a round of like layoffs like before. And I was like, all right, I got to figure out a way out. I took an internship I didn't take the internship. I applied for a program that offered an opportunity to work at an investment bank in London. Moved to London to work for UBS Investment Bank. It was a good time, but a bad time to work at an investment bank. This will take me to the campaign because this was 2007, 2000.
For those of you listening who weren't privy to this knowledge in 2007, 2008, that was the years of the beginning of the global financial crisis. It's a devastation. If you worked in finance, real estate, like I did, it was a time. I remember those times very, very well. So you're in London.
Yeah, I'm in London working at UBS. I had like this idea mapped out. I'm like, I do math. I did the numbers. I can crush it. Come in, work in London. I can work the desk out here. Swing back to New York. Man, boom. This is gonna be it. Financial crisis happens. Boom. I'm starting to read the tea leaves. I'm doing interviews, and I'm like, all right, this is okay. And then a girl who I was dating at the time, randomly, she's like, hey, you talk a lot about politics. I got a friend who works on the campaign. I said, well, what do you mean works on the campaign? I have a friend who works on the Obama campaign in Ohio. Do you want to go work? I was like, I guess. She was like, send me your resume. She sent it in the next day. She sent it in probably like Sunday, and I had an interview Tuesday. I was on a flight to Cleveland, Ohio on that next Saturday, and I was out. I had to tell my mom, like, hey, I'm quitting another job because like they're gonna fire me at some point. This is like all this is gonna end.
How long had you been in London at this time?
About a year.
So, and UK was hit specifically hard, if I remember, because Royal Bank of Scotland, I think, went belly up during that time. And yeah, so it was kind of an easy decision.
It was getting tough. It was getting tough at the time. So it made the decision. It didn't sound great at the time, but I could see the inside and like knowing this isn't getting any better before everyone else kind of like hit it later on. So like it didn't hit everyone else probably like October. I knew it at, early August, September, July, August timeframe.
August 07.
Yep. Well, this is 08.
August 08.
Yep. This is August 08.
Gotcha. So I remember those days. And what strikes me about this, I don't know if this has occurred to you. I mean, obviously probably did because you remember, maybe you've forgotten it as far as your mindset back then, but we didn't know if Obama was going to be president at that time.
We did.
And he was a lot of people don't realize this, but he was a dark horse. Like he was a underdog. Like against John McCain, who was a career politician.
Yeah.
Like Obama had, I think, held like 2 or 3 like Senate terms, maybe 1. Okay.
Yeah.
So very unknown, very unlikely to get the nomination. And then some things happen, and here he is in the driver's seat. So it's a long shot. But at this point, no other black politician had gotten as far as he had gotten in like road to the presidency.
Yeah.
So here you are, like a guy that just 5 or 6 years from this point, 7 years from this point, was in Ghana alone, and then all of a sudden, less than a decade later, you're on the campaign trail for America's first black president. So before the election, what's going through your mind then?
So I arrived in Ohio. And I don't have a car. So like before I actually owned a car, but it was in Baton Rouge with my parents. So I didn't have a car. And by the way, my job required a car. That's I want everyone to put a pin in that. My job required a car. I didn't have one. That is important because I was an organizer on the campaign for Northeast Cleveland.
Before Uber,
all that stuff. And that's important because and this will go down for me. I wore a pair of Converse every day, and I walked everywhere. I slept on a couch with a local priest at one of the dioceses, and I walked everywhere. I walked a hole in my shoe, and then one of my volunteers lent me their bike. Then I started riding everywhere, and then they lent me a car. So then I had a car for a while. So the car caught on fire, but it almost died. But my point is, like, I was
what kind of car was it?
It was like a Volvo. She had just put in the shop, just came out. It was like wiring bad, but I was determined to organize for that because, to your point earlier, like I just had a direction, and my direction was I wanted to knock on every door that I could to figure out how to get this man in office. And I looked at it as my relatives who were still alive at that time, like my great aunt and uncle who graduated from Grambling in like 1945, 44, 45. I owed them a piece of history. And that was my piece of history. Like I knocked on every door every day to where whenever they called Ohio, it just like everything was just there. And that's what got me at least to the point of the administration. You pointed out earlier that, I went to Southern's law school. I actually went to Southern during the first term. So I interviewed for roles, but I was like, I want something more senior. So I went to law school and then came back to the campaign to do the re-election, get him in a second term to do the administration.
Were you did you go back to Cleveland?
Yes. Went back to Cleveland, same area. They gave me the whole city this time.
The whole city. So you went like North Royalton to Chagrin Falls to all those areas, right?
Yeah, Shaker Heights,
Heights,
all that stuff. It was
Painesville, I think, up in the north. Yep.
Yeah. So I learned Northeast Ohio very, very well. Every street, crick, every crevice, learned it very intimately. But that was something that I knew because I was interested in politics. I wanted to try it at that time. So I had to like test it out and I
Yep.
enjoyed it. And that's what got me involved in politics.
And so 2 successful campaigns for Obama.
Yep.
And then what?
And then I knew I wanted to do the administration. Of course, family history, dynamics. My family had done a lot of businesses, so I wanted to do things in the business sector.
Yeah.
And the way it works is you kind of like identify the cone or like the economic cone, which is like 3 or 4 agencies that you want to be in, and they interview you. And I landed at the Department of Commerce, where I was an advisor to the Secretary of Commerce. I started out in their exec sec, and then was at MBDA, the Minority Business Development Agency, and worked there for a while before leaving the administration and then working for DC's workforce agency.
You were in the Department of Commerce
Mm-hmm.
during a time when commerce was recovering, and there were some challenges. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, there were a lot of challenges as far as like what we decided to do in the administration. There were definitely several challenges. It was a unique time, so I was able to see how policy was made and really understanding what makes people policymakers. Like that was always my thing. I'm like, you see these people like on TV, like they're policy wonks, and it's like, well, what makes them like a policy expert? Yada yada yada. And it's kind of the rule of 10,000 hours. Like that's how you should look at a policy expert. Instead of saying like, well, what qualifies you to be a policy expert? It's because I've probably read every piece of information that pertains to that topic and the most minute information. So not only do I understand the headline, I understand the subtleties of the topic. And that is what makes someone a policy expert. But even when you're entering that field, you probably still have enough understanding of like how things operate, if you're interested in it and you're curious about it, to just read up on it, learn about it, make yourself a student of that topic, and you can become an expert.
Yeah. So fast forward to today.
So right now, I'm working with nonprofits and startup companies, kind of navigating government. One of the things that I've learned, or that I learned in the administration, is a lot of the big companies, like when I was working for the Aerospace Industries Trade Association, they have representatives. They have lobbyists, like they have armies of lobbyists. They have them in-house. They hire them. But the small, mid-sized companies do not. And I wanted to help them navigate and advocate for the things that they need, which is like grant money, different regulations, and get them in the rooms that they need to be in to have the right discussions. So whether it be in a mayor's office, city council office, with a senator or a state rep or a governor's office, I wanted to make sure that they were represented and that they knew how to get at the right table and be at the table when the decisions were made. So that's what I do now, and I really enjoy that. Because it kind of combines like what my family did as far as like starting businesses and really being there at the beginning of the political movements, to just really helping those people really advocate for their issues at those tables that they needed to be at.
So your company?
So I work with Strive.
Strive.
Strive is a nonprofit workforce provider out of New York. So I work with them right now, and they're growing nationally.
Awesome. So and you're based out of DC, correct?
Yes.
Perfect location to do what you do.
Yep, based out of DC, and help them nationally.
So one thing that strikes me about you is there's actually a scripture that comes to my mind, and it's one that I have kind of made my mantra. And it's Colossians 3:23. And that for you, it takes me back to when you were in Ghana, West Africa. That Colossians 3:23 says, "Do everything wholeheartedly, as if not for a human master or yourself, but for the Creator of the universe, your God." And it just seems like you do things on a higher purpose. From way back then to now, there is that steadiness, as nothing is going to distract me. This is not for me. It's not for my boss. It's for a higher purpose. It's for your ancestors. It's for the God who created your ancestors. So that's been something that I'll take away from this episode, man, is just how empowering that has made me feel hearing your story.
No, greatly appreciate it. I'll tell one little anecdote before we wrap. When I was at Morehouse, and this is one reason my dad wanted to fight me. I could have got a golf scholarship to go to Southern, but I said no. And I chose to go to Morehouse, and Morehouse didn't have a golf team. But I decided to say, you know what? I will start the golf team. And with that, we started the golf team, did club trials, so on and so forth. And what ended up happening is we get scholarships. So I'm playing like 2-3 years without scholarships, doing travel and stuff. So start the team. Team does well. Of course, I graduated. But there are moments when I'm like, this is not for you. This is to benefit someone else who will come behind you. Fast forward 5 years, Morehouse wins the National Minority Golf Championship. There are 2 players on that team who then end up becoming close friends and start Eastside Golf.
Wow.
A nationally recognized golf brand right now.
That's insane.
So I didn't know it at the time, but I say that to I guess articulate that sometimes it's not about you.
That's right. And we sometimes focus on like a failure or something that we did not perceive a success in. And really, you just got to keep going. And I think about that steady ship. Just keep on going in the direction, no matter the waves, no matter the storm. Keep going in the direction that you feel you should go in. That's where your destination lies. And it's not about the storms that come up. It's not about anything else. It's about reaching that destination. That the journey takes care of itself as long as you keep moving. So congratulations on keeping moving. And man, I can't wait to see what the next 20 years hold for you. It's been a delight talking to you, and we're completely over time. You are definitely, Van Freeman, thank you so much for being on this episode, and you are definitely 3-1 great.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, brother. See ya.
When you're from the 318